There's something very special and I think a little bit incomprehensible about Christmas at Fountain Street Church. I am now on this is not my first rodeo. This is in fact my second rodeo with you. It was something I was unprepared for. That's okay. I called, somebody said you should call Bruce Bodie and ask him about Christmas before it happens. Bruce was a minister of this church for many, many years. And I called and I asked Bruce about it, and Bruce and I have grown very close in that time, and he said something like, it's its own religion, but, get ready. And I thought, get ready, I'll be ready. It is beautiful, and it is its own thing, and it's very special, and it is very ancient, and there's a great deal of wisdom in the way that Christmas is celebrated here at Fountain Street Church. My entire vocational identity, everything that I do, the things that I love involve finding and fixing up beautiful things, old things, repairing them, but also preserving them. And this touches every area of my life. So of course, I love and I adore the work of Alan Lomax. Quite a few of you know who Alan Lomax was, but he was a researcher and an ethnomusicologist. He lived in the 20th century, and he helped record so much of the folk music that we have today, and so much of the music that is in not just our hymnal, but hymnals across the country owe their origins to the people who sang them together, but to Alan Lomax, who brought them out of the oral tradition and onto the printed page. Owing to someday I'll do a whole sermon series about Alan Lomax. He desired to see beautiful things preserved from generation to generation. And so it was for that reason that in October of 1961, in his little apartment in New York, he invited a 60-year-old African-American woman to travel all the way north to New York from her home in the Barrier Islands of Glynn County, Georgia, to sing into a microphone. And her name was Mary Elizabeth Jones, but nobody called her that. She was known as Bessie Jones. And she sang Glory into that little microphone, that little reel-to-reel tape recorder. And she told him her stories about where this music had come from. I found her story because I was seeking angels for this sermon series and for this theme. And this whole Christmas, we've been seeking angels together, whether explicitly or implicitly. I'm smitten with the stories that she told Alan those years ago. Bessie Jones was born into crushing poverty in Dawson, Georgia. Her grandfather, who she loved, her grandfather who helped raise her, had been an enslaved person in the South. He was born in Africa and captured and sold to white American farmers in the South. Bessie Jones grew up singing, and she grew up teaching. She became old enough, she taught the children of her community how to sing and how to play games. It was the songs and the games that were taught to her by her grandfather, who had learned them as a boy in Africa. These were very old songs and very old games and traditions. One of these songs is an anthem of hope. We'll sing it together after I finish up here. But this song was sung and taught for children, to children. And it's still a song for children, and it's a song of hope. Advent, all of this, is only ever about hope. When you start to layer on the folk traditions and the syncretism, it gets kind of wild, as it is at Fountain Street. Christmas is itself a pagan holiday. It was adapted from countless festivals that occurred through the world, right around the end of December. We know this stuff today. You look at the temperate belt of the planet Earth. A lot of these holidays are tied to the winter solstice, but they also coincide with other stuff that's going on in late December. More practical things is any produce any of the food that we had that wasn't going to make it through the winter needed it to be eaten before it was spoiled. And in the cultures of human beings where alcohol was fermented, which is to say all of them, you bring the harvest in end of August and beginning of October, and if there's an excess, then that's set aside to ferment, and whether it's grains or late season fruits like grapes, and then lo and behold, it becomes ready at just about the same time all around the temperate belt, which is right around now. So you get to take the cork off of the booze, and then there you go. The word for all of this stuff is Advent. It's a good word. It's a Latin. It just means to prepare. Ad, to, venire, coming, or something to prepare for the coming of something. And it's a mess. So even the bits and pieces of Advent that are somehow still internal to Christianity are a mess, because the Christians they're not even sure what they're preparing for. They all have an answer, but they don't agree. There's 3 traditional understandings. They're either preparing for the second coming, or they're preparing for the Eucharist, the presence of Christ in the communion, or they're preparing for the birth of God in Bethlehem. So either the beginning of the world, or maybe the end of the world, or maybe the middle of the world somewhere, I don't know, something like that. You get other things that pop up into it and then get baptized into it. So the Advent wreath is one such thing. The Advent wreath is, like so much of Christmas, the fault of the Lutherans, because the people of Germany, of that realm, have been hauling greenery into their homes in the middle of winter long before there were ever Christians there. In the Western tradition, Advent has 4 Sundays, so the wreath has 4 candles. In the Eastern tradition, Advent has 6 Sundays, so the wreath has 6 candles. At Fountain Street, your Advent candles are lit in the order of faith, hope, love, joy. Right? Faith. And imagine the poor people's confusion when I didn't know that. They thought, well, haven't you done Advent before? It's faith, hope, love, joy. No, because it's different in every church. Every church does them in different orders. Don't tell them that. They'll correct you. But it's down the road at St. Andrew's, it's Peace Sunday, because they go hope, peace, joy, love. And then I think at St. Mark's it goes peace, joy, hope, love. They all do it different. And some of them have a pink candle in there as well, which I'm not even going to get into that. It's a ritual. It's a ritual action, and rituals are things originally most often intended to teach children something, to be able to pass something down that transcends language and writing. It is to teach them to have hope and anticipation of something. But for what? Teach the children to prepare, get ready. For what? Santa Claus? His presents? Well, that's partially true. Right? If you pay attention to Charles Dickens, this is an important season for the capitalists. Dickens wrote about that. He wrote them into his story, very adeptly played by the foil of Ebenezer Scrooge, right, at the beginning of the story. So for them, the hope of Christmas is lots and lots and lots of money. The golden quarter, they've called it. All the way back to Keynes. The Santa Claus rally, Christmas spending. Under the religion of capitalism, each of these 4 candles is counting down the days until the final quarterly report of the year. Right? Prepare. What do we do to prepare? Get your spreadsheets ready. What do the people do? I'll just spend all their money, It's the same as today. And everybody kind of grumbles about it too. Says, we've got to get back to the real meaning of Christmas, But nobody can ever really say what that is. Now, for the Christians whose faith is weak, and remember, we talked about faith last Sunday. It's the weakest when it's replaced with certainty. Well, they've got to know what they're hoping for. Come up with an answer. Unless you can tell me exactly what it is that is going to happen, what we're supposed to be hoping for, I refuse to believe or have hope. So they've got to have some kind of destination in mind. Most of them have settled on the idea of what the second coming is going to look like. And there's a lot of talk about this during Advent. You know, as the clouds rolled away like scrolls, there's going to be fire from on high and a judgment seat. Or if they're dualists in the way of Descartes, you know, they've got a whole system set up where you've got like a ghost, and when you die, your ghost goes up into the clouds, and then you get assigned a harp, and you spend eternity just bored out of your mind, I guess. This is all very new, this going to heaven stuff. No, this is based in convincing people to be certain about something, which is neither faithful nor hopeful. It doesn't rest on faith, but certainty. And it doesn't rest on hope, but certainty. They don't like that word certainty, so they use the word orthodoxy. They won't get it right. Because because we know the story of why the world can't get it right, and especially the people in the seats of power, because that's what the story's actually about. We know what it's going to look like because it happened one time according to the story, and the powerful people in the church and the people with all the certainty and all the orthodoxy and all the right beliefs completely whiffed it, just missed it. Because they know it wasn't what they thought was going to happen. Because they were certain of what was going to happen. They were certain that they knew that God coming to earth, it was going to look a certain way. They didn't need hope or faith, as they had certainty. And they screwed it up so badly that there's 2 whole chapters of the Bible about it. What they had faith in and what they had hoped for is emphatically not what happened, because they didn't have faith and hope. They had certainty. Because lo, the heavens did in fact descend to earth. And it was a little brown Palestinian baby, conceived out of wedlock, born to people who were sleeping in the streets of the capital city. And this family then became refugees on the run from the local cops, and even had to flee to another country just to survive. And if you try to tell me that the Christians in America today are going to line up around the block to welcome a brown baby born in a homeless shelter to refugee parents, undocumented immigrants, I'm going to laugh, because we tried that. No, the hope is nameless, glorious wonder. And that baby grew up and loved and taught that the kingdom of God is within you. I see it when I look at you, any of you. If I'm well rested and I've done my homework, as the Buddha nature shines through you and through me, so we know it. We can see it in each other. See the face of God. I see the Brahman shining through you. This is exactly what Jesus said would happen. Well, where do we look for hope if we have to look at something? Well, where did Bessie Jones look for hope? Where did Bessie Jones' grandfather look for hope? This isn't complicated, so I'll just answer. I'll sit down. The truth about Fountain Street Church in this place and the sort of incomprehensibility of Christmas is that its hope was always, 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 always found in the children of the church. And this hope was well-founded because this place is very old and very beautiful, and many generations have come and gone through here. It's been through at least 5 really, really rough spots. 5 times in the life of this community where they had very serious problems and had to have very serious conversations about whether or not there was going to be a future. And I have that story in my mind, and perhaps I imagine in my memory these very serious conversations are suddenly interrupted by a very unserious small child, which is to say the presence of God. They doubled down on hope, and the children carried the light back up to the candle and lit it again. I can't make you love each other or anybody, and I can't make anyone love anyone else. But I can look at the children of this church and see in them the certain knowledge that they are very, very loved by the people who are in this room. That is what hope looks like. It is to teach them the songs. There are many children here every Sunday and many more arriving Sunday after Sunday, and you're doing the things that you remember how to do. There is no certainty in a child, there's hope. There's certainly no orthodoxy in the proclamations of children, there's only faith. And so then perhaps we don't need to seek so much to serve the children of Fountain Street Church, but rather to be served. Less to teach, more so to be taught. And then trust in them that they will continue to light these candles year after year after year, just as you did, just as many of you did, and have hope. And then we will work. That's the work. The work of Advent is to liberate their future. Liberate their future. How? Well, by addressing the economic despair of their parents, investing in hope. Strengthening the schools, investing in hope. Strengthening all of the various things that we know they need to survive and thrive, that is hope. And when we set their parents free to make decisions for themselves, when we set the work before us is the work of liberation for all people, that is how we invest in the hope of the children that they will bring into the world. Each family safe and free. Then hope found in children who are loved and protected and cared for. That's the work of Christmas, and that is revolutionary hope. Take a deep breath and step out into the world. The world has been transformed into a place of hope. And we can see holiness exploding all around us. As G.K. Chesterton writes, I can't do it better than he did. He said, "But now a great thing in the street seems any human nod, where shift in strange democracy the million masks of God." Let us hope together. Amen.